Greetings. Our quote for the day is from Niels Bohr. An expert is a person who has made all the mistakes that can be made in a very narrow field. Today's talk focuses on two areas. The Elon Musk, Kim Kardashian effect is the first. The second area we focus on is the longs versus the short when it comes to Tesla's stock price announcement that happens today, the 1st of August 2018. We're also going to follow up with a discussion of a quick conversation I had with a rheumatologist regarding autoimmune diseases and quick tips on what we might do to stave that off a bit. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks once again for joining us. Please like, subscribe, and we could also use your support on Patreon. Also a note, it definitely has an impact if you comment, as well as if you hit the like button in terms of how this ad is placed in the hierarchy and therefore the number of views that it gets. Many of ways you can support the channel if possible. Greetings, and I wanted to note that we do live streaming, and I can see as soon as you guys say hello, and I appreciate your quick hellos as you do, and we will definitely acknowledge you at the end of our show. Now, today's talk is kind of different, unusual in that I get to bring the Kim Kardashian effect in when it comes to Elon Musk. Just want to see if I can get a little better sunshine effect where it doesn't, blow up our image. So today's talk is kind of interesting. The first one I was trying to figure out is that I went to the thumbnail I chose to use today is the front of the local service facility on Sunday, the 29th of July 2018. And what you'll notice is that there's a great deal of activity. You would have expected that it'd be a bunch of people checking out Model 3s and kind of seeing what they thought of it. And in fact, what I found was that probably half the people were Model 3 oriented in terms of picking up their vehicles, etc. But I was actually pleasantly surprised to see that half of the visitors to the service facility were focused on looking at Model X's as well as looking at Model S's. So a couple of other data points I found very strange that was going on. Number one is that right next door to the Tesla facility, and I'll include this on our Tesla Fan Insight on YouTube, on Facebook page, so you guys can see further images. What you'll notice is that there's a whole bunch of people hanging out at Tesla, but next door at Audi, it's a ghost town. There's nobody there. So I've been trying to come through and figure out, well, what's going on with the fact that, not only do I have the data point of if you go in July, there's one or two people at the Audi dealership, and there is probably 20 people in different states of different positions at the Tesla facility. And the question that comes up is, why all this activity for Tesla and no activity for the local Bentley dealership, the Maserati dealership, same thing, just this is in the Tyson's Corner area. And one of the things that I came up with as an analysis of, as a way to understand this, was that I've been doing surveys. I meet probably 100 or 200 people, let's say, that make 50 to 100 grand a year at least and up. And what I was amazed by, impressed by, is the fact that you have a number of people from a certain socioeconomic status where all of the constant news that's been coming out on Tesla and what's happening in every aspect of the company, good and bad, results in there being a very heavy lens of the news on Tesla, not unlike how Kim Kardashian got to be well known from her sex tape. And then all of a sudden, Ms. Kardashian was able to convert this sex tape into a $100 or $200 million a year enterprise, which includes all of her family. And so it turns out that I want to call it the Kim Kardashian effect, where even if Elon Musk is being hammered based on the fact that he makes a pedo comment about someone after he tried to develop a submarine to help those kids get out in Thailand, he made that comment, and it actually made pretty heavy news, and I saw a lot of articles about it and the fact that it kind of negatively affected the stock. Even though it did that, it further keeps Tesla front of mind share for a lot of people who are purchasing cars. So I believe that on one hand it seems kind of crazy, but on another hand, Elon Musk in the media constantly for good and bad antics is resulting in a large number of individuals choosing to at least find out what's going on with Tesla in terms of the cars and going out to try them out and see if all the buzz and hype is actually real. So I'm kind of surprised by all this because literally you could add up all the people visiting the local dealerships of Mercedes, Maserati, Bentley, and Audi at the same time on a Sunday, and that equals the number of people inside of a Tesla dealership. So I believe that as the Model 3 moves down the curve of cost, you're going to see there's an attention capture for the public that I think Tesla will be able to translate into a lot of sales. The other thing is that I haven't been watching international press as much, but Tesla is soon to open the European shipment of the Model 3s, and all this buzz, I think, and information, including, for example, our channel, half of our viewers are non-US, Europe being our largest viewership zone outside of the United States. I just think that this is going to translate into a lot of buzz in a lot of different ways in which Tesla ends up generating the kind of traffic and information flow that results in them converting these people into buyers, because everyone is intimately familiar with all aspects of the company before they even walk in. An interesting side note to this that I've been watching, and it's almost painful for me now, is I've noticed that the turnover at the salesperson level at Tesla is got to be 100% every 90 to 120 days. And it's good that people want to work there. It's bad that nobody wants to stick around, but it makes it clear that in high-cost areas, living in a high-cost area and affording to work at Tesla is a bad combination for a lot of people. I kind of mention this because what I've noticed a lot is when I go in and talk to salespeople, they tend to be in the training process on learning about the vehicles and all of the Tesla products, and basically know very little, and I end up quizzing them, and they kind of know nothing about some of the advanced elements of what we tend to cover on our show. So Elon has talked about the fact that he's trying to get people way up the learning curve on the vehicle prior to them to seeing it, to the point where Tesla's he's even experimenting with direct shipment from the factory to the home of new buyers. And there's some articles about that's going on in Los Angeles. I think that situation is an interesting example of how, there's something called the time value of money, and with what Elon Musk pays having him deliver that vehicle to your house is obviously cost Tesla $1 million to have a car dropped off by Elon Musk and meet the buyers. But on the flip side of that is probably $1 million worth of good publicity, because none of the other auto manufacturers will do that or might be seen doing that at any time. So an interesting trade-off that's going on between customer service, impact, etc. The next thing I wanted to cover today, especially because the stock market is going to really react to what comes out from Tesla's earnings, is there's a whole bunch of materials focused on the fact that Tesla has actually flown employees in, particularly well-regarded mechanics, to help in the build-out and the ramp of the Model 3. This has resulted in production getting to as high as between 6,000 and 7,000 vehicles a week. And I think that's awesome that, that production number is being met. One of the surprising points was, and it's obvious, but I was surprised I didn't get it, is that in the case of the Model 3, they're actually building in the tent that you saw or have seen. There are no robots in there. That's just all human beings building out those vehicles, which is like, wow, that is really a focus on getting it done. I was also intrigued because when you have seasoned Tesla employees who are actually executing, particularly mechanics who are well regarded, you now have an interesting situation, because instead of having to train someone in on the car and how everything works, you have a seasoned person that understands Tesla, that's not going to make huge numbers of mistakes that are costly to the company. So I just think that, it's an interesting move. I do think they're getting to their numbers that they need to. I think that they're going to have to staff up in order to maintain the production run that they've started doing. But I think they're finding creative ways to actually maintain those numbers. Now, what we're going to see today is if the Tesla numbers are strong. So there are three different things that are being looked for today as Tesla announces earnings. Number one, what's the production volume of the Model 3? Is it sustainable? And are there costs that are making things miserable as they get to that production number? Number two is going to be a question of guidance. What is Elon Musk saying about what the future looks like? So the number could be great today, and that affects the stock price one way, but if the guidance he offers is really terrible, like nobody in the world wants to buy a Model 3, for example, would cause the stock to actually crash. The third thing that pops up today is what are the future plans of the firm, and how is that going to affect what all those numbers are? And finally, the most important thing is what's going to happen, what is currently happening, and what's going to happen with the cash of Tesla, and whether or not they have to go back to the capital markets to try to do another raise. Now, all these questions will be answered, and that answer will big time affect what the stock price is today. But I think that it's probably a good idea for you to keep an eye on what happens after market with Tesla's earnings and stock. Now, I decided to put on our page the fact that there's a long, as in a person who buys the stock and holds it type of what's going to happen, and then there's a short what's going to happen. It's my belief that if the number is exceedingly great in all counts, the stock price bounces heavily because the shorts have to either cover or they're trying to make a quick buck as the stock price rises to harmonize with Tesla's gaining on numbers. Now, the other part of this that's going on right now is what I call the long process. So if you're a mutual fund or a retirement fund, etc., you can't move as fast as those guys that hit their buttons within a minute of when that earnings announcement is announced. There are folks that will get recommendations from the stock market, and then they'll go back and make changes in what they're doing in order to tell institutional investors, is it a good idea to buy or sell Tesla stock? It's my belief that for a bunch of reasons, Tesla is in a great position, and there's no problem with the relationship between long holders and owners of the stock. That stuff I think is a no-brainer, very much under control. Where there is a problem is what's going on with the shorts, and we're going to find out if Tesla has satisfied the shorts in terms of what they're doing and whether or not they're delivering on everything that they've got to do to make sure the numbers are solid. Sort of a caveat on the shorts and the money raise is that Tesla is kind of in a position right now where they have to use the cash generated by their vehicles to make everything work. And if they don't, they're kind of in a tough position because raising capital is going to be more difficult. Issuing bonds is hard when your rating is low versus you can issue more stock, but if the stock price is down, it's a nightmare. So stay tuned. We'll likely have a show tomorrow to go through the numbers and sort of figure out what happened and what our take is on the new information that's been given out on Tesla. I believe there's going to be a lot of positive stuff there, and I think it's going to give the stock a nice push, which is why I think buying call options makes sense on the whole thing. The final thing I wanted to cover today is I like at the end of the show, once I've addressed all my Tesla issues, to look at problems or interesting items that are happening to the demographic of my show, which is primarily male, primarily above 30. Our average age is probably about 50. And today I wanted to look at, I met with a rheumatologist recently, and he introduced me to a whole concept called autoimmune diseases. So an example that he was sharing was looking at he was doing hi Roger, hi Mr. Milele. In this case, what they're looking at is we have a system for taking care of us in our bodies. In the case of, hey Jerry, in the case of human beings, what can happen is with an autoimmune disease, your body can actually start attacking anything that it sees within the body, even if it's a part of the body. And so when that attack occurs, it's called an autoimmune disease. In the case of arthritis, there have been some issues with this. So the doc explained that 20 years ago, what they would have done with autoimmune disease is to use low levels of chemotherapy in order to cause the body to release some of its defenses so that it doesn't attack itself and you can get relief. The problem was that when those defenses are lowered, there are a whole bunch of things that are harmful outside the body that can now attack and create illness issues. So one of the suggestions, I asked these professionals a suggestion of one thing that someone could do to help manage issues related to autoimmune diseases, and the rheumatologist suggested leg weights. So for example, he suggested put a weight on each leg, maybe 5 pounds or so, and try to do 10 or 20 leg lifts on each leg each day. The reason is that as you strengthen the quads in your legs, it helps solidify the knee joints and and releases pressure on them. On the contrary, the weaker your quad muscles, the more intense those knee joints are impacted by replacing what those quad joints would do in terms of solidifying the space. So just wanted to encourage you guys to think about autoimmune diseases and the fact that one of the ways to stave off things like arthritis, particularly in knee replacements, etc., is that. He also pointed out that weight management can be a big deal as well, because one of the biggest issues that's going on is that before you can get that replacement knee, they're suggesting that people that are overweight should lose weight, because part of the problem is that that knee will be damaged by the weight you're carrying. But the problem is, how do you lose the weight if you can't exercise in the first place? So it's a circular argument that's actually difficult for a lot of patients to address. So at any rate, we're at our time limit. I am planning on another show tomorrow based on some big news, obviously coming out with earnings and the latest on what's happening with the Model 3. I want to thank all of you for taking time to say hello and posing questions. The earnings call is going to be after hours today. It's definitely worth both listening or reading to them if you can. It definitely is going to affect the stock price, and I look forward to getting my comments into you either tomorrow or the day after. Any rate, this is please like and subscribe. Any comments would be appreciated. I agree with those of you who have said numerous times, don't put health information at the end of my show, but my strategy is very simple. I try to keep the health commentary at the end, where you can sort of cut it off and just do the Tesla commentary if you choose. But there are others that do enjoy the fact that we cover topics that are affecting folks in our immediate space, and this is one of them. Any rate, this is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Look forward to our show that we'll be doing for tomorrow. Tschüss, German, au revoir, French, lehitraot, Hebrew, Choda Hafez, Farsi, farvel, Dutch, and we'll add other languages as you guys introduce things that I should be learning how to do. Thanks always for the comments, Jerry, and the support. Don't forget, we could definitely use your help on Patreon. $1 or $2 would be very helpful, short and long term, to help our channel go. Bye for now.